Well, welcome everyone to Jubilee TV. We're going to kick it off with a video right now. We did a test before the show, so our video should be working. Here we go. Well, that was Bugger the Bankers, and I wanted to show that video just to impress upon everyone the international scope of the indignation of humanity against what's transpiring across the planet. And once again, we're joined by Henry Garman, and it's just he and I today. We have no guests, and we're both going to be doing a presentation, and Henry's is about creating the 144,000 tipping point, which is biblical in nature from the book of Revelations, and it's the tipping point number indicating it's 12 tribes of Israel, so there's 12,000 of each represented. And I'm going to be doing a presentation about there's an analogy in the modern culture. There's a movie called Avatar, and in the end of the movie Avatar, there's this big mythical bird that comes in that the protagonist was riding, and it was something that inspired all of the tribes in Avatar to unite against these outside usurpers. So it's something that plays into an analogy with the Ark of the Covenant, and I wanted to present that and why that's significant. So let's play our intro video real quick. And I'm so thankful that these videos are playing. Indeed, this is our Jubilee, and the Jubilee is something that represents our own individual rebirth. It also represents a season. times and seasons and appointed times. And it also represents debt forgiveness. And it's important to have all of these aspects. And some people, one of the most common questions I get about what we're doing is it's the 144,000 Exodus Jubilee. And people think, well, it's an Exodus. That means, you know, we're in captives in Egypt and we have to leave captivity. Well, what we're really talking about is an exodus or a removal of our consent and our commercial energy from Babylon. We don't, you know, as it says in Matthew, no man can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and mammon. In fact, it goes on, it says, you will either, you know, love one and hate the other, or love the other and hate, you know, ultimately God. And God in the Bible is Jesus, is the Torah. And that's really what is unique about this broadcast is we are Torah teachers. We believe in both parts of the book. And as Jesus followed the Torah, he was the Word made flesh who dwelt among us. And that's what's unique about this. And we want to, you know, explain our unique marketing ideas here. It's called your USP. It's your unique selling proposition. What's unique about this show? And what's unique about this show is that it's about monetary reform. It's about land reform. All of these things are biblical. It's just that nowhere on planet Earth is the Torah followed. The state of Israel was established by Rothschild the usurer, and the Jews in Israel are actually captives because they're disobedient to the law, and Christianity teaches rebellion to the law too. So you have a Hegelian dialect where the Jews don't follow the Torah and Christians don't follow the Torah. So what we are doing is trying to be obedient to the Father's law. So that's the unique aspect of the show. And I actually this week made a promo video kind of explaining what this is all about, and just got it done. It's called the Jubilee TV Mission, and it's just 3 minutes long. And I think it encompasses everything that we're trying to achieve, and that means that 144,000 tipping point. I'm going to play this video quick, and we'll get right to Henry Garman's presentation. So calling out to all area groups, we're going to make it happen right here, right now. That's our new intro explanation of the 144K Exodus Jubilee. And I think what's powerful about what we're doing is this isn't hate, this isn't anger, this isn't vengeance. This is just a plan for us to say we don't consent. We don't want to be captives in Babylon. I don't want my son growing up as a captive, as a debt slave, and I don't want anybody, everybody. There is a solution, and it's in the Bible. That's the operator's manual, and we just have to follow it. Follow the. Last week we had Brian on, and he had an acronym for the Bible. It says basic instructions before leaving Earth. Well, let's create heaven on earth. That's the good news. The good news isn't we die and go to heaven. That's good. That's absolutely good. But what's really good news is that we can create the kingdom of heaven on earth. And when you go out into nature, you can see that. And it's very obvious how beautiful it is. There's a video of Breckenridge, and it's very natural. There's natural beauty, and you can see God's creation when you go into nature. It's when you come into urban areas and everything's messed up, and Babylon is very obvious. And we have to bring nature into our communities, and nature is God's way. And when we bring God's way into our communities, it will heal our communities, or it'll heal our interaction with one another and heal everything. So that's what's exciting. And a quick note in there was a quick video within that intro video. There was a segment with a football player named Reggie White, and Reggie White he's actually he became a minister at age 17. He's an NFL Hall of Famer, and he was famous, basically during football or after football games. He'd have prayer circles, and but what really changed his course is after he retired, he actually started teaching the Torah, and he no longer was. He stopped going to church, and he stopped going to Christmas observations, because that was something that's not found in the Torah. And he was explaining a few unique things in there. It's number one is that we are the Israelites. Believers are the Israelites. In addition to the house of Judah, which is the state of Israel. So what had happened during the time of the ancient Israelites is they became rebellious to the Torah, and they were divided. The northern kingdoms, 10 of them, and the southern 2 kingdoms. Well, they went into captivity for the lower 2, and the 10 northern tribes went into captivity. Well, they never returned, and they got dispersed through the world. And it's a spiritual idea. I'm not saying that we have necessarily a genetic link to them. This is a spiritual idea found throughout the Bible, where God is going to bring his people back together and reestablish and regather his tribes. So this is going to be a common thread throughout our presentation tonight. And that brings me into our excellent presenter and co-host, Henry Garman. And Henry, are you good to go?
Yeah, thanks, Wayne.
Okay. I'm going to mute myself out.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to switch over to my screen share here. Okay, this is Jubilee TV number 7. Now, I just had to start with this humorous image. You know, we're small. We're just starting out. And we have great potential, as you'll see. What we're going to talk today about is the 144K tipping point, or making the usury-free Jubilee go viral. Now, this illustration shows a viral contagion, you know, setting souls on fire, I like to think of it. And the whole idea of the tipping point comes from a book, a very popular business book called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And this is a bestseller. In this book, Gladwell describes a tipping point as the one dramatic moment in an epidemic when everything can change all at once. And so Gladwell compares the spread of fads to the spread of viruses. He says they move slowly through society at first until they reach a tipping point in which they suddenly explode and expand rapidly. Now, he mentions in his book 3 principles for the spread of epidemics. The first one is the law of fews. Basically, he says that it only takes a few people or groups to spread the idea or product. And at the top left, I have an image of a map of the world showing the spread of epidemics. And you remember how the Black Plague or the bubonic plague was spread by rats on a ship. Now, if there had been a lot of infected rats on the ship initially, obviously the sailors would have noticed it. But yet there were probably only a few rats, and yet an epidemic spread all over the world. And so it only takes a few people, a few dedicated people with a new idea to spread it. And eventually it will take hold and become similar to an epidemic. The second law or principle, stickiness factor. And he says there has to be a quality that compels people to pay attention to a product. And, you know, the whole idea of Jubilee, it fits our modern economic situation just as a hand fits into a glove. It's the ideal solution. And I'll look into that in a little bit, why this idea is the idea. And then he talks about the power of context, that human behavior is highly influenced by its environment. He states that epidemics are sensitive to the conditions and circumstances of the times and places in which they occur. Okay, now he goes on to say the success of any kind of social epidemic or viral meme taking prominence in society is dependent on the involvement of people with a particular and rare set of social gifts. And he mentions 3 categories of people: connectors, mavens, and salesmen. Now, talking about connectors, he talks about people who are social, who have an extraordinary knack of making friends and acquaintances. A connector would say, I always keep up with people. And he says that connectors have a foot in many different worlds. They're connected with many groups and have the effect of bringing them all together. And, you know, actually, we're all connected now with the social internet. And I don't think we have to be special people with an extraordinary knack now that we have all the different tools available to us to connect and spread ideas. Then he talks about mavens. Now, the word maven comes from the Yiddish meaning one who takes knowledge. And this would be somebody who's a teacher, somebody who really investigates and puts forth a case, who teaches people the truth, or who teaches people what the new idea is all about. And then he talks about salesmen. And I added the word evangelists. And these are a select group of people with skills to persuade when the listeners are unconvinced of what they're hearing. So these are the 3 categories that he sets out in his book. And this book has been made into a chart. This is a chart about viral marketing. And you notice on the left, it talks about messenger. He talks about market mavens. And instead of connectors, he just uses, which means that now with social media, rather than one individual influencing, I mean, one individual will be the spark. One or a small group will start the spark. But Ideas can spread through social hubs. Now, the three factors here are the messenger, the message, and the environment. And looking at the environment and our movement, what is the 144K movement for usury-free Jubilee? I just like to explain what we're about. Okay, our goal is to unite and create a usury-free Jubilee economic system. Now, by usury-free, we mean free from the looting, usurping oligarchy who function through usury, through the banking system, through the Babylonian debt slavery system. And Jubilee is basically taking back what has been stolen from humanity. In Leviticus 25, when it says, "Sound the trumpet throughout the land, proclaim liberty to everyone," it says, "You shall return and take back your inheritance." And so this was God's command in the laws of Moses. And Jesus announced at the beginning of his ministry that he had come to proclaim good news to the poor. Now, our whole idea is to be obedient to the Creator's law and to practice sacred economics. So our goal is a usury-free Jubilee economic system, free from looting, free from usury, to restore our society, to restore our world to what God created for us. Now, this is in the context of a war that is being waged upon all of us. We see war, death, destruction, psychopathic inmates running the asylum, creating chaos and poisoning our minds, bodies, food, and environment. We live in a system of Babylonian confusion. We live in a system of control through a usury-based currency. And I'm convinced that the mark of the beast is in control now. Because remember, in Revelation, when it talks about the mark of the beast, that without the mark, no one could buy or sell. And we have these currencies that we're forced to use that come into existence through debt. And, you know, the Bible is clear. I'm not going to go through all the arguments about usury. But the Bible in many places states that usury is forbidden, that it's a grievous sin. And yet Christianity, the church, the synagogue, and the mosque are corrupted by the moneylenders. So what we want and what we're doing is a strategic initiative against Mystery Babylon. And yes, we're small, and we're kind of like David versus Goliath. Yet, we have the key understanding of the role of usury. And you know, unless the usury system is overthrown, and unless we have a sound money system, and by a sound, I don't mean the use of silver or gold. I mean a money system free from usury. Mankind will never be free from the chaos, from the war, the death, the destruction. And what we're doing is lawful. It lines up with God's laws. And we're calling for a peaceful revolution. We're calling to leave Mystery Babylon. Now, you'll notice on our home page, our page on Facebook for the 144K movement, that we talk about the mark of the Lamb. Now, this is an alternative to taking the mark of the beast. And it comes from Revelation 14, where it says, "I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written on their foreheads." So we choose to be to the economic laws of God. And we choose with all our heart and soul to obey God's laws, to humble ourselves and pray that God would heal our land. We choose to change our minds, and we seek a true revival, a true Reformation, Renaissance, revolution. You could use either one of those terms and it would be correct. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we look to our model. Our exemplar is Jesus Christ, who proclaimed Jubilee. And the only violent act that it's recorded that he did was that he flipped the tables of the money changers. Now, Jesus proclaimed good news to the poor, not good views, not saying be satisfied with your present situation and pretend things are rosy when they aren't. He actually proclaimed good news. And he said, for instance, when he healed, he said, if I heal you by the power of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. So Jesus demonstrated the kingdom as a present reality. And we're not content with sweet by and by. We believe that when Jesus said, all power is given me in heaven and earth, and when he said, go and make disciples, and he said, you will do greater works, we believe in the kingdom, that it's God's will for us as a present reality. And so what do we want to do? We want to expose the matrix of control, open blind eyes, create music, create art, means of liberty, with the goal of an exodus. Now, when Wayne and I talk about exodus, we're not talking about retreating from the world, physically, like establishing a Hutterite or Amish society where we would go to the woods and hide out. We're talking about humanity leaving the control of Babylon. Like Moses, we need to stand up and make a demand to the pharaohs of this world. Let my people go. So, in summary, our goal is to unite and create a usury-free Jubilee economic system. And the clearest path to that is to demonstrate the kingdom, to demonstrate our independence by creating our own currency, taking responsibility, and being the money. Be the money. Now, some people will object to this and think that, well, the only way to set ourselves free is to take control of national governments. And I would love if we could do that easily. Now, like I said, we have some criticism saying that creating your own currency is not going to work. But it will work. And we're not against those who want to demand a national usury-free currency, who want to pressure politicians and groups to be righteous. That's fine. Good luck, I say, with that. In Jesus' teachings, he spoke about the kingdom coming in two different ways. Well, and many times he talked about the end of the age, when he would come back and when he would establish the kingdom of God on earth, a second coming, an ultimate tipping point. And I believe that's going to occur. However, he also talked about the mustard seed of the kingdom that was smaller than all the seeds, that slowly grew and eventually filled the earth. And that's what we're about, practicing the kingdom. So I look forward to the second coming of Christ. I'm going to rejoice when Babylon is totally fallen. However, we are called to exemplify, we are called to model, we are called to transform our world. Just like the parable of the yeast that was hidden in the bread and then it expanded. Many parables of Jesus spoke of the growth of the kingdom. And so that's what we're about. And that fits with our efforts because we're small. We're starting out small, but we have the mustard seed faith. Now, it's a very important issue. We have to understand the importance of usury. John, king of the paupers, Turmel, said, Armageddon is the final battle between the keepers and the abolitionists of usury. And this might seem extreme at first, but think about it. If your eyes are open, if you have eyes to see, and if you have ears to hear, you are aware of the destruction of our world by international usury. Just look at Detroit, the manufacturing center of the United States, decimated by international usury. Think of Gaza. Think of the countries in the Middle East. Not only in the Middle East, think of all the havoc wreaked on third world countries and the problems in our own countries today. This is an important issue. We need a small group filled with faith who are willing to obey the Father, who are willing to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, and commit themselves to having an impact, commit themselves to growing this idea which is God's idea, and creating the tipping point. So I want to talk about some roles and strategies about what we can do to create the tipping point. And these strategies could be called something like what Jesus said when he said, "I will make you fishers of men." We're talking about being influencers, the custodians of culture, letting our light shine, showing what is possible, bringing hope, taking back what we have lost. And you know, we're not looking to recruit people for our own personal gain. It is our gain. It's all our gain. We're in this together. Humanity is being oppressed, all of us. And so what we need to do is we need to connect, and we can. Through the social media, we can be the connectors. And you know, I'm more, by makeup up till now, I've been more of a maven, a person who likes to study history, who likes to write, who likes to try to influence through the power of the written word. And yet I recognize that in order to succeed, what's the point of writing a book if nobody reads it? What's the point of creating a video if nobody views it? What's the point of having this TV show if we can't get watchers? You know, we all need to be connectors. We need to connect. And we can easily through Facebook and other social media. Now we can join Facebook groups that allow us to post and comment. And I'm going to actually demonstrate this. After this PDF, I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to actually step you through some of these things. And I've only got active on this in about the last week and a half. And you know, I used to think, well, who am I on Facebook? I only have like 100 friends or so. And what influence do I have? And yet, I've been creating these memes, and I've started to find other groups that I can interact with. And you find a group, and let's say 20 or 30 people like what you've shared, you can easily become friends with them. It's not hard. People are very open to someone who is passionately communicating the truth. Not only, so we can create memes, we can share memes made by others, we can comment, we can even include memes in our comments, and we can connect with major influencers. We can build relationships with like-minded people. And I'll demonstrate this in a few minutes. So some of the categories of Facebook groups that we're finding are responsive to Jubilee TV posts are Hebrew Roots and Torah Teaching, Anti-Rothschild and the Fed groups, Libertarian, Anti-Zionist, InfoWars, 9/11 Truth, Occupy Wall Street or Occupy Marines, Anti-Illuminati, Mason and secret societies. So these are, I would say, people that are more sophisticated in the sense that they're aware. They're aware of the world's problems. They're aware of the corruption. And they want to do something about it. They want to connect with people. They're actively looking for positive solutions. And we can connect with these people. And you know, it only needs a few of us. And I hope that all of you who are listening will take this seriously and think about connecting and spreading the word. Think about sharing and becoming involved. So one of the things I'm going to do, this is the last slide of the PDF, and then I'm going to go online and show you how easy this is to do. You know, you can create memes through many online meme creation software, which is free. And some of these are Imgur, Live Meme, Quick Meme, Meme Dad, and Image Flip. And so I'm going to go to that now. and I'll jump to my screen. Okay, so here's my Facebook page. Now, what you want to do, first, let's talk about how to find groups and connect with people. So if you look at the top left here, you'll see, okay, first of all, you have to be on your own home page, or your main page or your home page. Okay, so I'm just going to go home.
Henry,
just click that here. Yes.
We're still on the meme creator page, the PDF. I think we're on the last page of the PDF.
Okay, I'll just close that out. What about now?
You're on screen.
Okay, on my Facebook page?
No, your video,
Oh, okay, just hold on. I'm just going to go back here. Okay, I'll go back to screen share. Okay. How about now?
Facebook.
Okay, good. Okay. Okay, so here I am. I'm at my my home page. And if you notice on the left, you have the search bar. Okay, so what you can type in, let's say I want to find a group of, let's say 9/11 truthers, okay? So I'll type in 9/11 truth, and I'll hit search. And the first results will be those you are already connected with. Okay, so it'll show posts from friends and groups. So here's, see this wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up is a group that I'm already a member of. You can scroll down. You can see there's a few other posts from people that already connected with in one way or another. But if we go to the right where it says more, you can see an option groups appears. So let's click on that. And now here we'll bring up a list of all of the groups that have 9/11 truth in their names. And so here we see 9/11 truth movement, all theories welcome. I am the face, second one, I am the face of truth 9/11 awareness. Here's one, 1 million people for 9/11 truth. And so let's say I want to join, the simple thing of clicking, and now it says request sent. Okay, and then the administrator will have to approve our request. Okay, so let's say we want to find, so you can just work your way through all these, and if you look for ones that have a high number of members and that you think you might be interested in. If you want, before joining, you can click on the name. Okay, you can click and you can preview the group and move through the posts. And then you want to look at is are people sharing the same types of things are you interested in interacting with the types of info that's being shared? Okay, so here we can go down and okay, here's one about the Rothschilds. Okay, so you can see here 10 people like this. If you hover over the name, you can see the names of the people who liked this. Okay, so you can also look at, see how many comments there are. Okay, so here's a post which has 5 comments and 6 people liking. So let's say if I was to join this group and make a comment on this post, all the people who commented on this, you're probably aware of this, but I'll just go over it again. All the people who commented on this would receive a notification that, you know, this person commented, also made a comment. So this is a way to connect with a lot of people just by joining relevant groups, and then you can post either a meme or a comment. You can interact with people, and I'll just show you here. I'm just going to go back to my page. Okay, I joined about 3 or 4 groups in the last day or two, and I posted a couple of memes on some of them. And okay, here's one that I posted in a group called Wake Up America. Okay, so this is a post that I've had on the 100 site that I just 5 hours ago posted on this Wake Up America group. And okay, so you can see that it says it says that a bunch of people liked this. So now if I click on this, you'll see that a number of them are mine. What happened was I posted one meme 2 days ago, and these people liked it. And so what I did was I just clicked like this, add a friend. And so a friend request was sent. And here's somebody else who liked it, so I'll click on that person, I'll click on that person. And I'm finding that 90% or maybe almost 100% of the people who I add as friends do add me. And so it's really easy to connect with these people. And so then my plan is, in a day or so, I'm going to invite them to join our 114K movement. Okay, so it's actually really easy. I mean, you can also, I'll go back here and I'll see if notification will say that 6 people liked your post. But then you can also go down and you can find people who actually shared your posts. Okay, so let's see here. Kevin Redmond Sr. and Tommy Teague shared your post. Facebook will show you all the people who shared your post. So here 3 people shared this post. And so Kevin Redmond Sr. shared this post, so I'm going to add him as a friend. Okay, Tommy Teague, I'll add him as a friend. I see he has one mutual friend, Wayne Walton. That's a good guy there. And here, James Solomon. Here's another guy who added a friend. Okay, so it's really easy to make friends on Facebook. So when looking at these different, here I see Joe Haley approved my request to join the group 1 million people for 9/11 truth. Okay, that's the one I just applied for. Okay, so let's have a look at this site here. Okay, public group with 20,206 members. So now if I add a post or I make a comment, there's the possibility of many thousands of people seeing what I'm putting up here. So this is a way to connect with many people. Now let's look at the members and see if we can find out who the admins are. Okay, it says here, after members, it says admins 4. So I'll click on this, and here we go. So here we see who the admins are. Now, another way to find groups is after finding the admins to click on their name. Okay, and so here, I'm not going to add him as a friend right now. I'm just going to scroll down and see whether it shows what other groups he belongs to. Okay, this one doesn't. Okay, I'm going to go back. What we're looking for is somebody who is an admin who also, okay, these guys are not showing it. On some of these, you'll find on, maybe you have to befriend them first. Okay, so what I would do is probably make a couple posts, and then if the admin likes your post, you know you've got it good with the admin of the group, and you're on your way. Well, what I would do is I would make friends with this person, and then once I'm friends with them, you can also look and find out what other groups they're members of, because they're probably members of other related groups. And so that's another way you can find out what groups people belong to. Okay, now I'm just going to give one example of what I consider is a very good practice. And if you look at John Turmel, who is a member of our group, if you look at his posting, what he does when he shares something, he adds his own comment at the very top. Okay, so here's a meme or a link to Global Citizen calling about let's end extreme poverty. And he adds his own comment saying, meaning they have no answer to poverty, so do something about extreme poverty. Wouldn't an interest-free central bank account solve that? So often when you find posts that are close to the viewpoint that we share, you can add your own comment. So that you don't always have to be able to find things that 100% express your opinion. What you can do is you can share something that is interesting or close to the solution and add your comment. And another good thing to do is to use hashtags. So in your comment here, if we wanted to make a comment referencing usury, we could say, meaning they have no answer to poverty, so they need to do something about extreme poverty. Wouldn't it be great if they took a stand against hashtag usury to really solve that? So this is a good way to communicate consistently, even when you're using other people's posts. Okay, the other thing that I just wanted to take a look at briefly is this is a page on Mashable talking about the 6 best tools for creating memes. Now, if you have Photoshop like I do, you can do a lot of advanced stuff. But if you don't have any graphics program and you feel graphically challenged and you want to create your own memes, you can go to any of these sites like Imgur, Live Meme, Quick Meme, Meme Dad, or Image Flip. Let's just click on the first one here, Imgur. Now, sometimes this site is very busy and we can't access it, but okay, here we go. So here it says choose a meme. So let's say I wanna use this one. Basically, what I do is just click on it, and the image comes up. And, you know, you can start typing. Man, wouldn't it be nice? Be nice. And down here, if we could end usury. Okay. So here we've got a meme, and we can drag this around a little bit. Some sites give us more control than others, and we can click make this meme. Hollywood stars using people from the you can publish to Imgur, you can add a title, you can get a link to it, and so it's really easy to make memes. So in summary, what I would just suggest that we do is, I know Wayne is doing this, and I'm starting to do this. I've only started to do this. I would like you to think about how can you connect with people on Facebook, befriend, make friends, enlarge your circle, and connect with friends, with new friends, and we can really make a difference. Okay, am I live now again?
Yes, you're streaming.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I really liked that. It's interesting how there's so many instances where Henry and I end up coming to the same ideas separately without a discussion. And I remember a long time ago, I meant to make a video about the, creating a movement. And there's a famous video on Facebook where there is a guy, they're at some kind of festival, a concert, and there's just a guy who is just dancing all by himself. And he's at a concert and it's like a grass open field, and he didn't care at all. Like, he was listening to his own soul and dancing like nobody was paying attention, and he was entirely happy doing it. And then the next person came running up next to him and just started dancing. They were just dancing all silly. They weren't dancing together really in any way. And this, over time, that second person, that's the person that's pivotal. Once you get the second person, then it's easier for the third and the fourth and the fifth to join. And then it became, hey, like groups of 5 people would just start dancing alongside this guy. And anyway, if you get a chance, it's a really famous video that became the basis of a TED Talk, which you could look up on YouTube. And it's about how to start a movement. And I meant to create a video based around this, and that's what Henry did, and describing all these different roles within a movement, because God has equipped us all with different talents. As from the parable of the talents, we have some people would hate doing video because they don't want to get on screen. Some people just want to do audio, but they want to use their voice. Some people are more creative, like Brett Jones does a lot of print art. When you see videos where we have a picture of a Jubilee or the Kingdom of Breckenridge, often those are created by Brett Jones, he was a guest on one of the first Jubilee TV shows that we did. And what's unique about what we're doing is there's really nowhere else to do this. There's no other group of people discussing this topic where you're applying the Torah in order to heal every problem which is known to man. And basically, this is the foundation for the kingdom of heaven on earth. And that is what this is all about, is thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so irrespective of whatever Facebook group you join, whatever problem that they have that they're discussing on their show, let's say it's something that's based upon false flags, like Henry was talking about. False flags are never going to stop until you fix the money. The false flags are a symptom of a corrupt money system. And there's a quote by Henry David Thoreau that goes, "For every 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil, there's one who strikes the root." And Jesus struck at the root of evil. And that's why he reserved his only violent activity for that single group. And that goes all the way back into the Old Testament and the curse of the moneylenders from Deuteronomy 28:43. So these problems that are afflicting these different groups, and it doesn't matter which one it is. If you just if you go to that list that Henry had, there's one about secret societies and the Illuminati. Well, the reason why there's these groups that have so much power is because the money system's corrupted, and that symptom of corruption is never going to heal. It's never ever. You're not going to vote it away. It's not going to go away until we return to obedience to God's law. So as an activist, if you're posting on Facebook, you're there with the good news as to heal that problem and how that can be resolved. In fact, it's the only way that it can be resolved, because the governments have been usurped, unfortunately. So I wanted to thank you, Henry, for doing that, because there's just so many things that need to be done. Or you can make a video of, there's so many things that specific issues that you want to tackle, that you can't do them all. And that's that's the whole basis for what we're doing, is creating a movement. And there's a strategy for everything. There's a strategy for creating a movement. And can you give us any more insight from that book, Henry, about mavens and evangelists?
Well, when I'm thinking about mavens, we cannot only create memes and do comments, but link to important information. When we find important articles, when we can link to the 114K manifesto, you know, you can write longer posts. You know, people we get attention by sound bites, but then people emotionally connect with it, and that's important at first, but then people want more, or they want to be convinced, and so that's where communicating or linking to longer works is important. So we have a lot of really good writers, like we have John Turmel, we have Anthony Migchels, we have what you've produced, Wayne, what I've produced. We have, I forget his name, who has the site called The Wonderful, something about the beautiful, about money being beautiful, the truth about it. And so we can link to those.
Simon Andrew.
Provide supporting. Yeah, Simon Andrew. We can link to that. But the main thing is, first of all, we've got to get attention and hold attention to you know, point people to these things. So I think a mix of short and long, some comments, connecting with people. I find that I befriend these people, and then I go to their personal Facebook page to see what kind of thing they're posting about, and often I'll find a meme or a picture or a cartoon about, and then I'll think, oh yeah, Anthony has a web page that goes into this in detail. So then I'll say, by the way, Anthony Migchels has an excellent article explaining this in depth, or check out what Anthony has written. And then we're helping that person, and we're making their post even better by contributing to it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So there's, yeah, go ahead.
I meant to say as I was, you know, when I was going through my way, because initially when I woke up, I was listening to Alex Jones a lot, and he's a big gold bug. And then I started to listening to his show. Like I would get there early to hear his show. I was obsessed. And the thing is about that solution, all of all of the problems that are discussed on there with the growing police state and poverty and loss of civil liberties and all of those things, none of those problems that are discussed for 3 hours of his show will never be solved, because they're being herded toward a solution of gold and silver, which is against the truth of the Bible. The Bible warns against dependence upon gold and silver as a false idol. It's the very definition of a false idol. So then by getting in early to his show, I started listening to George Whitehurst Berry. And then George Whitehurst Berry linked me on to another guy called Pastor Sheldon Emery. And he's one of the few pastors that I've ever heard that had a radio show roughly 40, 50 years ago, that he would talk about all of these same issues, explaining how, you know, the kingdom of heaven is on earth. And he was a kingdom preacher. He spoke the good news. The good news is the kingdom of heaven is on earth. It's repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's right now. It's here, as Henry was discussing. So when you know, when you listen to the news, it's all bad news, because Babylon never gives you the solution to the problems. It just keeps telling you about the problems. So it's almost like when you listen to the news or even alternative media, they keep reporting all the bad news. There's no solutions. There's this feeling of inevitability to World War III, and it doesn't have to be that way there. You know, all we gotta do is look at the owner's manual for planet Earth, and the Bible explains how we can resolve these things. And all right, it's about we're in roughly an hour, Henry. I don't see any additional quotes. I wanted to mention that Anthony Michel's usury-free monetary reform site is called Real Currencies, and there, if you become friends with me or Henry on Facebook, just try to become friends with our friends, because the friends that we have generally, the way Henry was describing, that's the way I have become friends with the majority of the people that I'm friends with on Facebook. Is when I post stuff and they are interested in this topic, then they're smart. Then they're enlightened. Then they care, because that's really what it is. Is if they're stuck on the false. Babylon creates Hegelian dialects where they simultaneously finance Democrats and Republicans. So both sides, if you support the Democrats, because they're financed with usury, the Democrats are going to end up doing evil things, just like the Republicans. So the Democrats are always able to look at the Republicans and say, look at the evil stuff they did. Meanwhile, either party might do some good things, but generally, it's circling the drain. We're growing Babylon. There's this expression I heard recently, is that we're always building somebody's kingdom. The question is are we going to build God's kingdom, or are we going to build Babylon's kingdom or Pharaoh's kingdom? And the only way that we can be certain that we're building God's kingdom is to follow his instructions. The Father has given the instructions to us, because anything outside of that, it says in the Bible that the narrow path is the way, and the broad path is the path to destruction. So what you find out on the internet and on TV, it's 99.9% the path to destruction, because they're not talking about these things. Henry, what are some other sites that or teachers that you found that discuss these things on the internet?
There's not many anti-usury sites. I think we're connected with most of them already. There are some Bible teachers. I go to God's Kingdom Ministries with Pastor Jones. He's anti-usury. It's not his main focus. His main focus is more the fall of Babylon, and he's really big on prayer campaigns where Christians, believers, join together and decree. Basically, his idea is that we can decree in the heavenly courts that God will. If we humble ourselves and pray and believe and align ourselves with the Word, that we can overthrow Babylon. And he has a lot of evidence that even though we're unknown, hidden in the shadows, as it will, God is in control and things are working out. And he says it's time for us to take our role, to consciously step outside of Babylon and rise up as the leaders that God's called us to be. And so he recognizes that he has one role and other people have other roles. Now he's one person I follow that I learn a lot from, particularly in identifying the difference between true Israel and the false state of Israel that we have today, looking at the biblical origins of the struggle for the birthright, the fight between Jacob and Ishmael, and identifying Ishmael with the Rothschild project. Okay, so that's somebody I learn a lot from. Other than that, David Icke, I think it is, in England, he speaks against usury a bit, but he's caught up in a lot of stuff that you know, the moon is hollow and there's reptilians, and I think he uses that more as a metaphor for our situation. It's hard to say whether he's serious about that or not, you know. So in terms of people offering a solution, I mean, there's also the alternative, people like, at Divine Cosmos, there's a writer who talks about that an alien alliance is working to save us. You know?
Well,
I mean,
I
he
think
has a
I'm
lot of
going to pass
insights, but
on
it's pretty
that.
far-fetched.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
you know
the
what I
thing.
mean?
You know, it says very plainly, there is a rock that we can make as our foundation, and that's what we're doing. We believe the Torah is the rock. It's the Word of God, and Jesus was the perfect example as to how to follow the law of Moses. And all right, well, we're going to transition. I'm going to play a quick commercial here, and then I'm going to do my presentation on how the Ark of the Covenant is actually a similar metaphor to a feature, an aspect of the story found in the movie Avatar. Here we go. All right, I'm going to be doing a presentation now about Avatar. And the movie Avatar was basically an allegory about what has happened to planet Earth. It's about the indigenous who lived on a planet. I had posted a question on the chat to see how many people had watched it. But just as a review, I'm going to play the trailer to the movie so that it can refresh everyone's mind. And if basically when watching that, think of the indigenous, they call it in the movie Avatar, they call the people the Nava'i. They were very similar to the indigenous American Indians, and the American Indians were very similar, and they had a similar economic system to the tribes of Israel. And we're queuing up the video right now, and so we'll play. So the movie Avatar, Henry, had you seen Avatar?
Oh yeah, many times. I have the DVD.
Okay. And I agree. There's a comment from Tanner indicating, that part of the Babylonian system is to basically control growth, so that it keeps us in a state where that they're controlling with smart meters and global warming and those sorts of things, where they hype those things to create new systems of tyranny. I'm not focusing on that aspect. The primary thing focusing on is, number one, is that we are so far removed from what the indigenous their values. And if you think of it in our society, right? Anybody who has a lot of Federal Reserve notes can come into your community and buy virtually everything that they can want. However, in an indigenous society, money doesn't really have a value like that. Even though the American Indians had money, they would never sell their land. They never paid rent. They never had poverty. There's no large gaps between, there weren't rich Indians and broke Indians. They didn't have these concepts. Well, because we have so few entertainment ideas, I'm not saying the messages from Avatar are perfect. I'm just taking a couple segments of them. And ultimately, they're, if you look at the movies that they show in Hollywood, there isn't a movie that exists that explains how humanity gets its act together and emancipates itself. Even the Bible-based movies, they're historic. They don't ever show a future-based movie where humanity becomes obedient to the law. We have a Jubilee. We kick the bankers out. That movie is never, ever made. So all we can do is take little segments from different movies and apply them to what we would like to do. So the indigenous, in the Avatar movie, they would never consider just giving their land away because it was sacred to them. And they also understood, like the American Indians, is that the Creator, God, created the land. And that's part of the Jubilee too, is God created the land, and it's not something that we can just allow outsiders to come in and just take whatever they want. And it's so foreign to us to even consider these things. And the reason why this movie was so powerful to me is it really connects to me, because growing up, I had very, like when you're young, you don't know what you're going to do with your life. And I was raised in a military family, and I always wanted to be a Marine. And as time goes on, you come to find that the Marines, just like all of the armed forces, they're not really fighting the enemy, because the bankers are financing the government and they're staging all of these wars. Well, the protagonist in the movie Avatar had he had a hero's journey. And we're going to talk about this topic of a hero's journey throughout this discussion. And that hero's journey is that, you're like when I was young, I had no self-esteem. I didn't know what to do with myself. I couldn't play professional sports. I couldn't even play high school sports. So I didn't know what I was going to do with myself, but I knew I could, if I worked hard, I could become a Marine. And that was like a badge of honor. And then as time goes on, you realize that ain't such a big deal, because your soul can't embrace that once you know what it's really all about. And the protagonist from the movie Avatar went through that same journey, where he was initially he went to this new planet fighting on behalf of this corporation in order to get this stuff called unobtainium. And it's very similar to the way Summit County was established. Initially, the American Indians lived in Summit County, and there was gold all over the place, but they didn't view it as anything amazing. They didn't think anything of it. But what they did value is they valued the land, they valued their families, and they valued their communities. Similarly, that's how the ancient Israelites viewed their communities. They valued the land as a gift from God, their communities, and their families. And they would never conceive of having some outside usurpers just come in and take it, all for this unobtainium stuff. Well, that's exactly how Summit County was settled. Outsiders came in, kicked the Indians out, all in pursuit of gold and silver, and that's more or less the story of the U.S. Well, part of this story of the Nava'i, they had this giant bird called the Taruk, and it was this mythical bird that in their ancient history that had only been used a few times. And this ancient bird, if somebody could jump on it, that meant he was blessed by the gods, so to speak, so that he would be a great leader in their times of crisis. And the time of crisis was occurring because everything that was natural on the planet Pandora was being destroyed by the humans. So we're going further into this. I want to show the second video where it kind of discusses this Taruk bird, because the Taruk bird is very similar in its application as to how we can use the Ark of the Covenant as a fulfillment of real life, real world. Not, you know, the movie Avatar was created by man. The Bible was created by God along with the Ark of the Covenant. So we're gonna make this analogy, and because Hollywood has this story, well, we don't have the budget of Hollywood to make it. In a way, Hollywood is much more real to most people than the Bible is, because we don't have the ability to do a movie. If I could make a movie about the Ark of the Covenant, we could make it far more powerful than Avatar. So here's a quick video talking about this role of the Taruk in the movie Avatar. So that was just a catch-up. So we have to talk about the two things that, so you have the Charuk from the movie Avatar, and the other mystery to most everyone is there's a mystery surrounding the Ark of the Covenant. What is the Ark of the Covenant? And how does the Ark of the Covenant relate to this mythical bird in Avatar? Well, you see in the movie Avatar, they were going around with the Charuk because it represented the fulfillment of their mythology, that they had all of these different tribes throughout Pandora. So basically, the majority of the movie was based around just one tribe, but when they had gotten routed and the humans came in and destroyed the Tree of Life, I think it was called, they were desperate and they didn't know what else to do. Everything that they valued and held sacred was being destroyed, and they remembered this mythology, and they had that skull of an old Taruk that had died, and it was in their history, just like the Ark of the Covenant is in our history, but we don't really know how do you use it. Is it like it's just this magic box that does amazing things? Well, in that same way that they flew the Charuk around the planet and they regathered the tribes, in the same way we can regather the tribes and inspire people to resist. And as Henry was saying before, the Battle of Armageddon, right? Well, that's what happened at the end of Pandora, the movie Avatars. They had this epic battle, but it's not a violent battle. It's all it is a struggle between those who keep the Torah and are usury abolitionists. We're just Exodus. We don't want to participate in your system. We want to serve God rather than Mammon. And that's the difference. So I'm going to share my screen here so I can give you a little more history about the Ark of the Covenant. So I'm making an analogy. This is my analogy. You can see the little avatar guy, the Nava'i on top of the Charuk bird. And that's what inspired the indigenous to resistance. So I'm hoping
I don't see your screen there. I just see your live face still.
Oh, you do? Okay. Pardon me. Oh, I'm glad you caught me, Henry. I hit the wrong button. So I need to share my screen. How about now?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Okay. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. One day we'll have a producer, Henry. One day. How's that? Can you see it now?
Yeah, I got it. It's
okay.
Looking good. Yeah.
So making the analogy between the Ark of the Covenant and the Avatar's Charuk. And as I said, the Nava'i is riding it, and that was the fulfillment of this is a man-made prophecy. I'm trying to expose a biblical prophecy, God's prophecy for humanity. So this is a hero's journey, and we're talking about your hero's journey. Just like Jake in the movie Avatar, he had a hero's journey where he grew up in Babylon in a human society, and then he joined these indigenous people because he found that his soul was more connected to them. And so in the same way, it's touching on what's your own soul's highest purpose. And what is, that could be made manifest additionally by pursuing your vocation of passion. And, we've discussed this before. Henry and I don't get paid to do this. This is something that we were born to do, that God has called us to do. But we think of the idea of the kingdom of heaven is that at some point, all of us will be able to do what we love for a living. For instance, my wife has a pet sitting business, and she's a member of Mountain Hours, and she issues money called Mountain Hours, her own self-issued money, and she works in the vocation of her passion. And that's the foundation for the kingdom of heaven. Finally, it says, great in the kingdom of heaven, in I believe it's Matthew, it says, he who teaches and does and keeps the commandments will be great in the kingdom of heaven. So we want to combine all of those things, your soul's highest purpose, your vocation of passion, self-issued money, and all of that doing within God's laws. So something that's essential to understand, the Old and the New Testament are about the same thing. They change the names a little bit, but ultimately there's one creator father, there's one Messiah son, there's one people called the Israelites, not to be confused with the people in Israel now who are the state of Israel established by Rothschild the usurer. There's one law called the Torah, which is the law of Moses or the law of God, and there's one destiny for us, and that's our fulfillment of the Exodus Jubilee. That's in Revelation. And to understand what chaos is going on planet Earth, you have to go back to a 3,500-year-old truth. And it says, thou shalt not be to him as a usurer, from Exodus 22:25. That's the law, and the curse for disobedience of the law is, if you're obedient, you have the blessings. If you're disobedient, you have the curse. It says the curse for disobedience, I call this the curse of the moneylenders. It says, the alien among you shall rise higher and higher, but you will go down lower and lower. He shall lend to you, but you will not lend to him. He shall be the head and you will be the tail. You being him being the head and you being the tail, that means usurpation. It's important that everybody looks that up, because it's hard to believe that we're under a curse because we're so sophisticated as human beings. Here's the Jubilee cycle of obedience and disobedience. When we're obedient, we have the blessings, and disobedience is the curse. So moving all the way to the right of the grid, we are in captivity in Mystery Babylon from Revelation, and when we become obedient, we'll have the kingdom of heaven. So the Ark of the Covenant, Ark simply means container. Covenant is law. So Ark of the Covenant simply means the container of law. And the Bible says that the Torah is the perfect law of liberty. Liberty in the Bible means something entirely different than what you see with libertarian groups. Liberty in the Bible means Jubilee, release of captives. All of that is the Torah. The Ark of the Covenant is unbeatable in spiritual warfare. This isn't physical warfare. We're not looking to fight anybody physically. And in this story, we're making an analogy between two stories, the greatest story ever told of the Bible and the story of Avatar. In each of these stories, there's something called a denouement. Denouement. That's a noun, and the T is silent as it's French. It's denouement. And that means a part of a movie. It's the final part of a play, movie, or narrative in which the strands of the plot are drawn together and matters are explained or resolved. So all of the threads of the story in the movie Avatar were resolved when Jake, the former Marine, jumped on top of the Taruk, and he regathered all of the dispersed tribes of in the planet Pandora and got them all together for the big epic battle at the end of the movie. The Ark of the Covenant, because it was the word of God, here's a picture, I believe that's Joshua, they bowed down to it. It was, think of the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. They were pursuing it because they viewed it as it was a radio transmitter to God. Well, what it is, it represents God's consciousness, the Torah. It's what God wants for us. And it's also part of the 144K Exodus Jubilee. And when it's carried within your parade, it represents God's support of us. When the ancient Israelites no longer obeyed the Torah, the Ark of the Covenant was no longer effective because they were no longer obedient to God. They were going man's ways instead of God's ways. So the Torah, which is the law of Moses, is equal to the Ark, And it's also equivalent to Jesus was the Torah made flesh. Going down to the bullets, the Torah and the Ark were lost roughly the same time in the Old Testament. Both remain lost until today because there's nowhere on planet Earth where the Jews don't obey the Torah. They obey the Babylonian Talmud in Israel. And then finally, the return of Torah will be roughly equivalent to the return of the Ark, which will also be roughly equivalent to the return of the Messiah. From John 1:14, it says, "The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us." Jesus was the Word of God made flesh. The Father brought his only Son to earth so that he would heal humanity and be the perfect model for us to copy, to walk in his footsteps and do the things that he did, such as proclaim Jubilee and turn the moneylender's table. So the Father gave the law. The Son gave the perfect example to follow the law, and now it's time for his children to give love to the Father by following the law. So this is the whole message of the Jubilee and the Ark of the Covenant, and that's the Lion of Judah. And the Lion of Judah is Jesus, represented by the two lower tribes that are going to reunite with the 10 upper tribes. So a general way to think about the uniting of the tribes is the 10 upper tribes are generally Christians, and the two lower tribes are generally Jews who repent and follow the Torah in a similar way that Saul became Paul when he followed the Torah and gave up the Babylonian Talmud. So part of the Jubilee is a very strong attachment, reattachment to the land as the indigenous. So there's debt forgiveness so that we don't serve the money lenders. There's release of captives, debt slaves, prisoners, self-limiting the beliefs. Very important, reliefs of self-limiting beliefs. There's a land inheritance because the land was created by God as his gift to us. And there's sacred economics, which are neither communism or capitalism, and of paramount importance, just like the Nava'i or the American Indians, is the land is sacred. Our communities and our families are sacred so that we protect them above all else. It's our community, and we just don't sell it. So making an analogy of the tribes of Israel with the indigenous, and you think of when the American Indians were first faced with the white Christians, because the white Christians that came from Europe, they were not following the law of Moses. They became the usurpers or agents for the usurpers in the exact same way that the Nava'i were displaced by the humans in the movie Avatar. And eventually what happens is everything that's natural and normal and created by God will be destroyed and replaced by Babylon. That's the goal of the destroyer. There's the creator and there's the destroyer. There's the only two options. So it's essential to understand God created the land, he owns it, and God gives us instructions to how to control the land and how it's repatriated to the people through Jubilee. That's our inheritance. So here's 3 movies which have similar stories of a hero's journey. And think of this hero's journey as how it may apply to you. And the movie Avatar connected to me the most because of having a Marine background. And, you know, when I watched Avatar the first time, I was awake. But when I watched Dances with Wolves and the Matrix movies, I wasn't awake. So I took a totally different meaning. They were just nice movies and they're well done. I thought they were cool. But they all have similar stories to them where John Dunbar was a colonel in the Civil War. And there's a scene in there where he's actually riding horseback between the Northern Army and the Southern Army. And he jumped out in the middle of it and was kind of trying to commit suicide because he was so disgusted with war and he's frustrated. And through the movie, he initially was fighting on behalf of the American cavalry, and as time wore on, his spirit became more and more connected with the indigenous. And his hero's journey, or his transformation, was he finally became aligned with the American Indians, because he saw that it was them that were obeying the natural order of Creator. And the American Indians, they treated the land as a gift by God. It wasn't something that they bought and sold and traded each other. Next, in the Matrix movies, basically man is being replaced by machines, and Neo, his hero's journey was initially he was just working in the rat race. He was working at a cubicle, but he knew that there was something wrong, and he eventually took the red pill and came to realize there's this whole corrupt system that was literally turning him into a human battery, in the exact same way that the money lenders feed off of us, our energy parasitically. That's what happens in the Matrix movies. And in the other aspect of that is that the people in the Matrix, they were computer simulations, and they had no souls. So he realized that he had no soul while he was working his corporate job, and then he rediscovered his soul and how powerful it could be. And that's the same story. The Dances with Wolves movie is similar to the Avatar movie, where someone who had been raised in Babylon had rediscovered their soul's passion, and they had that hero's journey or transformation. And I think that is truly what a born-again experience is, where you're born again, realizing that you want to stop serving the system that's destroying the natural order, destroying God's kingdom. And this is an analogy. The horse on the left has grown up in Babylon, and it's learned all these self-limiting beliefs. It's been broken and domesticated. And when we have an individual Jubilee, Jubilee is a society and a community thing, but it's also something that happens to us individually. And once you regain the Spirit of the Lord, then we become the hands and feet of God. And that's what the Creator wants for us, is to rediscover the Spirit of the Lord, which dwells within each one of us. So my hero's journey was, because I didn't have any self-identification, I identified growing up with the Marines, the Dallas Cowboys. I always liked the Dallas Cowboys growing up. Then I started a pool company, so it was all about money getting. And if, in Babylon, if you have Federal Reserve notes, then it allows you to do other things. You can, get divorced twice like I did, because you're just so wayward and have no sense of direction, because I didn't. I was just jumping from false idol to false idol and false belief to false belief, and completely a mess. And then, basically I woke up to the banker bailout in 2008, and I realized that, basically planet Earth was a bank colony, and I was reborn. That was my journey, and we promoted a local currency called Mountain Hours, created a music CD there called Jubilee. We actually rebuilt the Ark of the Covenant, and we included it in some of our music videos. The one love message is that we are all one. We all came from the same source. We will all return to that source, just like my child came from. And that is the gospel of the kingdom to share with everyone. And Henry was alluding to this earlier. What we're doing here is this is the metaphor of the battle of Armageddon, the abolitionists of usury versus the keepers. But once we align our soul's purpose with the Creator, then Goliath isn't fighting us, our physical form. He's fighting God. He's fighting the Spirit of the Lord. on an individual basis. But then when we combine forces, then of the 144,000, that is the story of what was going on in the movie Avatar when they're flying around the Taruk and regathering their tribes for the epic battle. And in the same way, we can utilize the Ark of the Covenant to indicate to our regathering tribes that all of us, when the true Jubilee, I believe, doesn't happen until all of us go through this hero's journey. The members of the 144,000 are going to have to go through this hero's journey so that they are truly, they have purified their souls. You know, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I still use Federal Reserve notes because I'm trapped in Babylon. But I realize how those pieces of paper and digits of Federal Reserve notes, they would have no value if all of us didn't have faith and belief and back our labor with it. The only reason they have value is because of us. The Federal Reserve notes don't have value because of the less than 1% bankers. They have value because of us. So that 144,000 tipping point that Henry was discussing is all of us uniting together. And when we have the 144,000 tipping point, we will then have experts in every arena. We'll have people that can make videos better than I can. We'll have individuals that know how to produce an internet TV show, because then we'd have a producer. And the point is that the pieces of paper called money don't do anything. It's human beings that do everything. And when all of those human beings have gone through their own individual hero's journey, they become the hands and feet of God individually, and we collectively, we will deliver the knockout punch. So this is the review, is please, understand how we are all feeding this beast which is destroying us. We have a terminal addiction to usury that is essential for us to break. We have to admit that we have a problem. We have to break it. And one of the greatest demonstrations of our own belief in ourselves is working in all of us becoming entrepreneurs and working in the vocation of our own passion. And just like a restaurant owner can issue a gift certificate, that's a form of money that's usury free. There's no monopoly over it. There's no interest in usury. There's no usurpation where it's controlled by a tiny minority. Well, we can all self-issue money, and by doing this, by spreading this message and discussing this solution as a foundational solution to every problem which is afflicting humanity, we will be teachers of the Torah, and we will also become doers of the Torah, and that will make us great in the kingdom of heaven. And that is the metaphor. I hope it made sense. Arise, my fellow usury abolitionists, for the 144K Exodus Jubilee. And I'm done with that. I'm going to stop sharing and bring my mug onto the screen. Henry, did you have some comments on that while I check the chat board?
Well, I'm a Canadian living in Ecuador, and the city I live in is probably the one city in the world that has the most successful indigenous culture in the world. And I live in a community where I would say the majority of the population is Aborigines. And this group they were successful as entrepreneurs before the Spanish came, and even today they're successful. And I haven't talked to them about issuing their own money yet. But I love their values. They have a real harmony with nature. They have a real tradition of harmony between the sexes. Men are men and women are women, and there's a real kind of a romantic atmosphere here with the indigenous. They're very connected. I have many indigenous friends here. You know, one of these days they're going to ask me, I just know it, it's coming up in the spring, they're probably going to ask me to be the godfather for a marriage. They have this tradition where, you know, they take turns, and every so often that they ask somebody to, basically you buy everything for the bride and groom. It falls on one person in the community. So it'll probably be my turn next year. But it's a very, it's very liberating. It's hard to describe, but you feel it. You know, the connection with the earth, the connection, the whole society. They have their own justice system, informal justice system, where if somebody violates a taboo, does something serious, they'll catch the person and they'll put them through a ceremony. It does involve some pain, but they'll really let the person know that they failed the community. And the police have limits on what they can do. They don't brutalize people, you know, but they'll whip them with some kind of switches or whatever. But to me, it's refreshing to live. It's not, you know, in this kind of community. But yeah, the tribes of Israel, you know, they, after leaving Egypt, they went through the desert. And when you're traveling through the desert, you have to survive as a group. You know, the clan, the survival of every member of the community is important. And that's a real indigenous value. And when they ended their nomadic phase and entered the promised land, they had to ensure a way that those values were maintained so that the community didn't fall into the Babylonian culture, into usury, into dispossession of their inheritance. And so for these reasons, the Jubilee, the sabbatical year, and the Jubilee were established to preserve the original equality of the tribe. And you know, I see this parallel in the New Testament, where Paul talks about us being sojourners on the earth. You know, we're born with nothing, and eventually we leave with nothing. We pass through the world for a time. So in a sense, we are a tribe, you know, and it's idolatry to become attached to material things and to really miss out on the meaning of life. And as a tribe, we really need to reconnect with our Creator and establish the Jubilee. For it is a reality. It is God's will for us. I really believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, we're so you know, conditioned by Babylon to even think of how destructive this is. Of, like, for instance, in Summit County, many of the people who work and build houses in Summit County can't afford the houses that they're building. And then the houses that they build are, you know, $5–10 million because it's, you know, high-end ski country. Robin and I live in a trailer, a 400 square foot trailer. And even that, when we bought it, was $200,000. A 400 square foot trailer.
Wow.
You know, well, think of how backward that is. Think of how unnatural that is. You have a community where you'll have a child that was born and raised in that society. They learned how to ski there. They end up getting in. There's only a few jobs here, generally, for people to do, and that's in hospitality, that's in construction or government. So you do, you know, I'm a former contractor, so I relate to them the most. So if you're a contractor, you work in that community, but you can't afford to buy the houses that you're working on. But there's outside people who can buy these houses, and they only live in them for maybe a month out of the whole year. They might rent it for another 4 weeks, and they actually use it for a month. So you have outsiders who have the most choice property in your community. They have no connection to the community. They shop at Walmart, so their money never stays in the community. And so we've developed this system that, just like in the movie Avatar, it has no respect for anything sacred. The land isn't sacred. It's just something to be bought and sold like men's souls, just like Judas sold his soul for 30 pieces of silver. I'm going to be going back to building pools likely this spring, but it's not, I'm selling my soul. I'm prostituting my body and my soul because God is calling me to do something different. But in order to survive in Babylon, you have to, we have a child now, so you have to do this. And this is the way, as you were alluding to in your presentation, that's the mark of the beast, that you cannot buy or sell in Babylon without serving the earthly gods called moneylenders. So that's one way that you can see how this system has totally been perverted, and it's only we human beings that do that. All of the animals that live and make a house, a bird will make a nest and he'll live in that same nest for free in the kingdom, because the bird listens to God. He hasn't been corrupted by Babylon and all of our television programming. And that's this whole hero story. So I thought, if that would be valuable, if you can, when did you go through your hero's journey? Like when did you realize that, working for the system as a cog in the wheel, you're actually supporting your own destruction? Did you have like a specific story as to how you awoke to that?
Well, I was in business with my family, and it's funny. It was a week when all the rest of my family was on vacation, and I was in charge of the business. And the week before, I had flown to New York on a business trip, and I came across some campaigners who had some information about the debt crisis. And so I bought a few books from them.
What year was
read them on the airplane. Around 84, 85. And getting back to Canada, I got a phone call from one of these people inviting me to a conference in Richmond, Virginia. And I thought, well, I can't go there. I was just in New York the week before, and I'm not entitled to take a vacation. And yet I was reading the Bible, and I came across a verse in Ezekiel, in which was talking about, I've made you a watchman on the wall, and when you see the sword coming against the land, if you blow the trumpet, then you'll have fulfilled your duty. But if you don't, there will be blood on your hands. And that made a real impression on me. And then I got this really strong feeling that I needed to go to this conference in New York. It was like I couldn't resist it. And so basically, even though I was the only one in charge, the business ran itself pretty well, the other employees. I just told them, well, I'm taking off to the States for 5 days, and I'm sure you can take care of everything. And I just bought a ticket and hopped on a plane and went to Richmond, Virginia to this conference, not knowing why. I mean, it was like I was compelled. I couldn't help myself, And then I went to this, and at this conference, on about the last day of the conference, there was this black minister from Zaire. Okay, the conference was on the IMF, the World Bank, and the corruption of the bankers. And there was a pastor from Zaire, a Reverend Dibala M. Palesha, who gave this sermon saying that he started out with Luke 4 and Isaiah 61, and he said, the Lord has called us to be his prophets, to proclaim the year of Jubilee. And I was there awestruck. I know this was why I was there, to hear that. That was the only reason I flew there, was to hear that, and it changed my life. It's like that moment my eyes were opened, and I thought, this is my destiny. This is what I have to research. This is what I have to do. And that's how it all happened. You know, I came back and started researching, and you know, it was like when I would explain in churches about the year of Jubilee, people would get excited, except when you came to the part of putting it in action. And they would think, well, you know, when God works a miracle, when Jesus comes back, that would be wonderful, you know, but, you know, you talk to people about, well, you know, our government's policies are causing the death of 20,000 people a day in Africa. We need a Jubilee for them, and we also need a Jubilee for ourselves because of all the people who are losing their homes. They look at you like,
elaborate on that?
Yeah.
Can you expand on that notion? I think that's something that we need to talk about more, is that usury gets paid before people get fed. So there's a direct correlation between deaths due to poverty and hunger and usury. So you mentioned that 20,000 number. Can you expand on that?
Well, I don't know whether that number is accurate, but you know, you have these organizations that encourage foreign investment, or they like the World Bank and the IMF, making loans for development. Actually, what happens is that these loans, the governments issue a credit to multinational corporations to go in and build a dam or a school or a hospital or something. And the multinational corporations are paid money to construct something in a foreign country. And the elites of the country receive a cut for their help in organizing. Yes, John Perkins' economic hitman definitely does apply. So, you know, the money never gets to the people. It doesn't create work in a poor country. You know, basically, something is constructed using multinational corporations and their labor force. And then the bill is given to the government, who then squeeze the money out of the people. It's given to them as a debt, and then they have to pay interest on this debt. And then usually these projects never turn out to benefit the country anyway. Something goes wrong, falls into disrepair, or the price of a commodity drops, and now there's no export income for this African country, for example. And then the debt just compounds, and on a loan of, let's say, $1 billion, eventually becomes 20 billion owing. And then once, you know, there's a danger of default, and it's obvious that the recipient country, and that's an oxymoron in itself, the country that received the loan ends up having to sell off their assets to the bankers to just keep paying the interest. It's just, you know, new loans are made to enable the current loans, the usury portion, to keep being paid, you know. Yeah. And the example, the worst example is Haiti, which when, after the American Revolution, the blacks in Haiti, being inspired by the Declaration of Independence and the new mood in America against Great Britain, they rose up and had a revolution and became an independent country. The problem was that Haiti was a very successful sugar plantation, the most prosperous nation in the Caribbean at the time. And so the United States, having slaves, the American slave owners who wrote the Declaration of Independence, were not at that time prepared to extend those benefits to their own slaves, and so they didn't support the revolution in Haiti. And the Americans and the British and the French agreed that the Haitians would have to pay for their revolution. They would have to pay for their liberty. And so Haiti ever since has been in debt. Now you hear all these stories how Haiti is cursed because of voodoo. Well, that's a big lie. Haiti is cursed because they've been under the rule of usury forever, and they're still under the rule of usury. They're still paying the debts to the foreigners. They're still paying for the privilege of being independent. They've never had a revolution in which they've thrown off the usurious system. You know, and that's it. The satanic aspect of Haiti's situation is the rule of usury, and the fact that these debts, they've never been allowed to write off, to pay off, you know, by lowering the interest to zero or next to zero to allow them to actually pay off their debt. And why should they pay a debt in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, they're in debt slavery. They always have been.
Yeah. Yeah. You think of, you know, in the movie Avatar, had they not won their epic battle at the end, basically over time, the planet Pandora would have been very much like planet Earth, where all of the natural resources were commoditized, and the benefits of creation of the land would not be shared among the people. It would be siphoned off to the elite. So I think it was when I first watched that movie, I cried. You know, I mean, it was so powerful to me because I was listening to the underlying story, because that's really what has happened to planet Earth. Is what did you think about it the first time you saw it?
Yeah, it didn't. The immediate parallels, well, they're there, but it didn't strike me at first. You know, like I saw it maybe more in terms of about ecology, and I think that's what most people take away from it. You know, but then if you stop and think about it, about the unobtainium, then the meaning is clear.
Yeah, it's a direct analogy to, it's a false idol. They're basically willing to destroy everything in the pursuit of unobtainium.
Well, you know the Incans here in South America, like in Peru, they had gold, gold doorknobs, gold hinges. They had their water spouts on their roofs were made of gold, and they didn't think anything of it. And then the Spanish came and when they saw the gold, and then silver was discovered in the 1500s. Shortly after they were here, there was a place called Silver Mountain. You know, they had to kill off the natives, just like the movie, just like Avatar. They had one note, and that the Indians here couldn't understand it. Like, why are they crazy for this yellow metal? And then the Spanish had so much gold that, you know, taking it back, shiploads of all this silver and minting coins, the Spanish figured they were rich beyond compare with all this gold and silver. And so because Europe was so entranced by the golden idol, You know, the Spanish were able to buy anything they want, but they neglected their own industry. There was no reason to be industrious. There was no reason to advance technologically because they were rich. They were rich beyond belief until the gold and silver ran out. And then Spain was the poor, sick cousin of Europe, the poor, sick country that had nothing. So what did their gold and silver do for them in the long term?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a direct analogy. It's a false idol, fool's gold, unobtainium. We've been conditioned to throw away all these sacred things that we have. That I'm going to sign out now. We've gone a hair over 2 hours. I want to thank the great Henry Garman for all of his contributions and the presentation of the tipping point and how you literally have a video that you could watch over and over and just follow it. And you can share that video with other people who are waking up. And this is how we grow our movement. Once we have 144,000 souls that believe what Henry and I do, and I believe that you do too, we can declare Jubilee and be independent. We can have the Exodus immediately. It's just a matter of creating our own software and digits for an independent anti-monopoly money system. And we can have true, authentic independence and start building the kingdom. So check out, share that video, share this video with others. And we're focused, we're on point, and we're building this foundation on the rock. It's so important to realize that. When I woke up, I worked on so many man's solutions to man's problems. We need God's solutions to man's problems. And that way we know we're building our future upon the rock, the Torah, the Ark of the Covenant, and the Lord Savior Jesus Christ. And that's it for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Henry. And final
thanks, Wayne.
We got Tanner, Daniel, and Joris. Thank you for checking out the whole show, and keep coming back and spread the good news of the Jubilee gospel, the good news to everyone. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, God bless you all.
God bless you,
Keep the
Henry.
faith. Okay, thanks, Wayne.